That department of being in one tuning, for example, the moment I'm in A, and I can change midstream during the same song, and we'll say we'll go to E. So that's just coming up. Pretty nifty.
That was cool. Let me ask you a question now. When somebody comes up to you and goes, well, does this complicate matters at all, like with fingerings, or do I have to learn so many new fingerings that I can't even deal with standard, let alone open G or open C? Or how do you approach that to a beginner?
Well, the thing I say to people is take it one step at a time. I mean, the beauty about chordal tunings is that it opens up the sound of the guitar. I mean, you can do things you'll never be able to do otherwise, especially fingerstyle. The thing I learned from Chet Atkins, that his approach to fingerstyle is what inspired me. And I started out in G tuning, and I got familiar with that. Then I changed to E tuning, and I got familiar with that, and I did that for quite a while. And then one thing leads to another. You begin to get a little adventurous and try things of your own, and that's another beautiful thing about this. You could actually write out your tunings that you think up or fits for a song, because it comes back to that to me. It's all about the song, and it's been a great tool to help in the studio, right on the firing line while it's happening. Singers change their keys. All of a sudden you've worked out this part, and they go, well, I think my voice is better in this particular key. So it gives you that step up on it. But I would say take one tuning at a time, find the one that fits. And I would say either G because of the blues thing, or E. And the beauty about E is that if you already learned standard tuning, then you have some notes of familiarity, especially the top string is still E, second string is still B, and your low string is still the low E. It's just all that stuff in between you got to figure out. But it is a better point of reference, and take it a step at a time. But for me, in the past, when I was learning, you'd literally have to stop and retune the guitar to the point that you really had to be in the mood for it. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you want to do right off the bat, maybe. So this gives you that a much greater overview because you can change so quickly.
How many tunings do you use?
I like to use between 6 to 9 or 10 tunings depending on the set. Now for my gig, lately, as the set list has evolved from the last album to the new album, I'm finding like 6 tunings does it well, and I have that in one menu, so I'm ready to go. For example, with John Hyde and the Goners, I might use 8 or 9, and that depends on his set too, of course, but it's real easy to change from one menu to the next. And you have the accessibility to be able to go. I have these also labeled for the screen so that I relate to the moment or to the event. For example, I sat in with B.B. King one night, so I have a B.B. King menu for all his horn keys, the flat keys. And that's when you really, you're like, you're kissing this thing, because otherwise I mean, I can play standard tuning in any key. I mean, I can do that. And actually, in the days before I had this wonderful invention, I would tune to E, and I can play in any key. But to have that thing with open tunings and to be able to get the big open sound and to pedal the low strings while you're playing the high strings, and essentially getting back to the what I was mentioning earlier about learning Chet Atkins' approach, where you got a bass pattern going, a rhythm, and a melody all at the same time. So it gives you a lot more to work with in that. And so when I'm sitting in with somebody and I don't have to worry about it, it's not that big a deal. And once you have your different menus set with your different tunings in them, I have one for the Traiteurs, which is a Cajun jam band back home. We get together twice a year for a benefit. I've got those tunings in there. I've got minor tunings, a whole menu of that, and just makes it really easy. And recording sessions, I've got a Shelby Lynn menu that had all the tunings that I used for her album, and also on one of the live shows we did for the label one time.
That's a amazing technique.
It's actual tone, it's actual note, because it's floating, right? It's not, you're not fretting. Right. So if you're fretting, you get that.
Yeah.
But since it's floating, it's not touching the neck, and you got another tone there.
Oh, that's really cool.
Ghost notes.
Who have you shown it to, and what did they think about it?
Well, you know, people come up to me, and the first thing they know, something's up. They see this, really, I think, and I explain it to them, and it's a little hard for people who don't, of course, play guitar. They immediately think, "Oh, you got a guitar that you can't tune your own guitar?" And I say, "Well, hell no! Nobody told me about that. I'm learning licks." But actually, it's not about tuning the guitar. It's about being able to have the flexibility to use different chordal tunings. So then I have to go into the explanation of that and the concept behind it. But for guitar players who've been there, they know the deal, and they're just blown away by it. Especially slide players, because chordal tunings and slide guitar are a beautiful marriage, and that's how I really got into them in the first place. So when somebody comes up to me, and anywhere from the beginning slide players to a really great player like Warren Haynes or someone, and it really catches their ear because they know what it's like to be in the middle of a gig and to make a change, or if a string breaks or whatever, and you've got your whole, like you maybe two guitars that you're using, and it's quite a bit of a fiasco sometimes. So the Lemonade said it really gets a lot of interest out.
What kind of problems have you had with it?
The only problem I've had with it is, and it's not really a problem, is getting used to the weight, because I had made a conscious decision to put this in the Les Paul, which I love. The Les Paul, as you know, is not the lightest guitar to begin with, so it adds a little bit more to it. But it's I also chose to use the battery pack, so I don't have to have the cable, and that adds a little bit more weight. If I was still pumping weights like I used to, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But there's a little bit of a consideration there. But I'll tell you something else. Now that's maybe, you might look at that on the minus side. On the plus side, and other than the obvious advantages of all these tunings, just gladly turn that over. But also, there's a lot of mass here with all of this. It is a lot of metal, and it really, really does give a lot of ring to the guitar. I mean, I'm not missing out on tonality at all. That was the question I had. I said, well, what happens when you put this in your guitar? What does it do to it? What does it do to the sound of it? I think you're best off getting a guitar specifically for the unit and deciding on which guitar you want to do that with, be that with the Les Paul or a Telecaster or a Strat or whatever, and have it separate and apart. Because really, if you think about it, I mean, I've always had my standard tuning guitars. I play with a flat pick, And then I had my slide guitars that I had set up for 13 through 56 gauge with a little bit higher action for a slide. And that would be the chordal tuning guitars. So I would think like that too. I'd have a specific guitar for it.
Would you recommend it to other people?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be standing here strapped on with it right now if I didn't. And I have to say, I don't do endorsements. I've been approached by a lot of companies. It's rarely that I do an endorsement. It's something I think really special. And heart and soul, this is a great invention. And kudos to Mr. Neil Skin for coming up with this and alleviating me from the burden of lugging 12 guitars around to play the gig next week. But it's great, and it's been really faithful and has really helped me to move about more freely in terms of going from one type of gig to another and to feel prepared and not have to hold anything back.